The small human ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Its metal hull was scratched and worn from many journeys. The ship was called Soul's Pride, and it carried 3 humans who would soon face the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim sat in his chair and looked out the window. He could see a huge space station ahead. It was bigger than any city on Earth. The station was made of strange metals that seemed to change color in the light. This was Nexus Station, where the Galactic Consul made all their important decisions. Hyunwoo was not a tall man, but he had kind eyes and a calm voice. He had spent many years talking to aliens from different worlds. Today would be the hardest talk of his life. "We are almost there," said Taemin Park from the pilot's seat. Taemin was a soldier who had fought in many battles. His hands were steady on the controls, but Hyunwoo could see worry in his friend's face. The third human was Sujin Lee. She was a scientist who studied alien life. She was looking at her computer screen and reading about the aliens they would meet today. "The consul has never called humans to a meeting like this before," she said. "Something big is happening." As their ship got closer to the station, other ships came into view. These ships were huge and covered with weapons. They belonged to the 12 alien races that made up the Galactic Consul. The human ship looked like a tiny bug next to these giant war machines. "Look at all those guns," Taemin said quietly. "They are not here to talk." Hyunwoo nodded. He had expected this. The consul did not like humans very much. Humans had been exploring space for only 200 years, but they had already settled on many worlds. They had made friends with alien races that the consul ignored. Worst of all, humans did not follow the old rules that kept the galaxy peaceful. The space station sent a message to their ship. A cold voice spoke in perfect human language. "Human ship Soul's Pride, you will dock at Bay 7. You have 1 hour to prepare for the meeting. Do not be late." Their ship landed in the docking bay with a soft bump. The bay was enormous and filled with strange smells. Alien workers moved cargo with machines that floated in the air. Some of the workers looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. All of them stopped their work to stare at the humans. Hyunwoo, Taemin, and Sujin walked through long hallways toward the meeting room. The walls were covered with pictures of alien worlds and great battles from the past. Guards stood at every corner. These guards were tall and covered in thick armor. Their eyes glowed red behind their face masks. "They want to scare us," Taemin whispered. "It is working," Sujin replied, but she tried to smile. The meeting room was the size of a football field. The ceiling was so high that clouds could form up there. 12 huge chairs were arranged in a circle. Each chair was made for a different type of alien body. In the center was a small table with 3 simple human chairs. The aliens were already waiting when the humans entered. Hyunwoo had studied pictures of these beings, but seeing them in person was different. They were much more frightening than any picture could show. High Counselor Threndak of the Veltar spoke first. His body was made of living crystal that sparkled like diamonds. When he talked, his voice sounded like breaking glass. "Humans," he said, "you have been called here to answer for your crimes against galactic peace." War Speaker Clithmar of the Zephyrians clicked his mandibles together. He looked like a giant praying mantis with 4 arms and black eyes. "Your kind spreads across space like a disease," he hissed. "You take worlds that belong to others. You break the ancient treaties that keep order in the galaxy." More aliens spoke. Each one had a list of complaints about humanity. The ethereals, who looked like floating clouds of gas, said humans were too violent. The architects, with their long snake-like bodies, claimed humans built cities in the wrong way. The Hive Mind Collective spoke with 1,000 voices at once, saying humans thought too much as individuals. Hyunwoo listened to every word. He did not interrupt or argue. He just sat quietly and took notes on his small computer. This seemed to make some of the aliens angry. "Are you listening, human?" demanded the representative of the Silicon Empire. This alien was a living rock with glowing cracks running through its body. "Do you understand the seriousness of your situation?" "I am listening," Hyunwoo said in his calm voice. Please continue. The aliens continued their accusations for 2 hours. They said humans had settled on 17 worlds without permission. They said humans shared technology with primitive races. They said humans refused to follow the Consul's guidance on how to live properly. Finally, Threndak presented the Consul's demands. You will withdraw from all disputed worlds within 6 months, he announced. You will submit all future colonization plans to this Consul for approval. You will share your terraforming technology with us so we can decide how it should be used. You will pay tribute of rare metals and energy sources as compensation for your past crimes. The crystal being leaned forward in his chair. Most importantly, you will accept Consul oversight of all human activities in space. We will place governors on your worlds to ensure you follow galactic law. Sujin almost stood up when she heard this, but Taemin put a gentle hand on her arm to keep her seated. These terms are generous, added Clithmar. Other races who have challenged the Consul have faced much worse consequences. What happens if we refuse? Hyunwoo asked. The room became very quiet. Several aliens exchanged looks. Finally, the ethereal representative spoke in a voice like wind through caves. No race has ever refused the Consul's terms. It would be unwise to be the first. I see, said Hyunwoo. He closed his computer and looked around the room. May I have some time to discuss these terms with my colleagues? You have until tomorrow morning, Threndak said. We expect your answer then. As the humans left the meeting room, Sujin noticed something that made her stomach feel sick. The alien guards were not just protecting the meeting. They were watching the humans very carefully. The docking bay where their ship waited was now surrounded by armed soldiers. We are prisoners, she whispered to her companions. I know, Hyunwoo replied quietly. They never intended this to be a real negotiation. Back on their ship, the 3 humans sat around their small table. Taemin pulled up displays showing all the alien ships around the station. There were hundreds of them, all pointing their weapons toward the human ship. They think we will surrender like everyone else, Taemin said. They think humans are just another weak race that will bow down to their power. Sujin was reading through her files about the Consul races. Do you know what I find interesting? She said. None of these species has advanced much in the past 1,000 years. They use the same technology, follow the same rules, think the same thoughts. They have become stagnant. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. They are afraid of change. And humans represent change. Outside their window, the alien fleet waited in the darkness. Tomorrow, they expected humanity to surrender its freedom and accept a place as servants in the galactic order. They had no idea that humanity had never learned how to surrender. The 3 humans spent the night preparing for a conversation that would change the galaxy forever. The human quarters on Nexus Station were small and cold. The 3 humans had been given rooms that were meant for much larger aliens. The beds were too big, and the chairs did not fit human bodies well. But Hyunwoo, Taemin, and Sujin did not care about comfort right now. Sujin worked at her portable lab equipment. She had been running secret scans during the meeting using devices hidden in her clothes. The results on her screen made her frown with worry. This is very strange, she said to her companions. I scanned all 12 Consul species today. Their biological readings are not what I expected. Taemin looked up from his military reports. What do you mean? Look at this data, Sujin said, pointing to her screen. Every single Consul species shows signs of genetic stagnation. Their DNA has not changed in thousands of years. They are not evolving anymore. Hyunwoo moved closer to see the screen. Is that bad? It is very bad, Sujin explained. Evolution is how life adapts and grows stronger. When a species stops evolving, it begins to die slowly. These aliens are like old machines that cannot learn new tricks. She pulled up more data. Look at their brain scans. The neural pathways in their minds follow the same patterns over and over. They think the same thoughts their ancestors thought 1,000 years ago. They cannot imagine new solutions to problems. Taemin set down his tablet and leaned back in his chair. That explains a lot about today's meeting. They kept talking about ancient treaties and old laws. Everything they said was about maintaining the way things have always been. Exactly, Sujin said. They are terrified of change because they cannot adapt to it. And humans, we represent the biggest change the galaxy has seen in millennia. Hyunwoo walked to the small window and looked out at the alien ships surrounding the station. Tell me about our military situation, Taemin. Taemin activated his secure tablet. The screen showed star maps with red and blue dots marking different fleets and worlds. I have been in contact with Earth Command through encrypted channels. What I have learned changes everything. He pointed to the red dots on the map. These are Consul military positions. They have more ships than us and bigger weapons. But look at this data about their recent activities. The map changed to show movement patterns over the past year. The Consul has been pulling ships away from their outer territories. They are concentrating their forces in the core systems where their most important worlds are located. They are afraid, Hyunwoo realized. Very afraid, Taemin confirmed. Our intelligence shows that 17 Consul worlds have requested additional military protection in the past 6 months, not because of external threats, but because of internal unrest. Sujin looked surprised. Internal unrest? But the Consul has maintained perfect order for 3,000 years. That is what they want everyone to believe, Taemin said. He brought up new information on his screen. But the truth is different. Their people are starting to ask questions. They see human colonies prospering on worlds that the Consul said were impossible to settle. They see human allies developing new technologies and becoming stronger. The soldier's face became serious. The Consul is not trying to control human expansion because we are dangerous to them militarily. They are afraid we are dangerous to them ideologically. Hyunwoo sat down slowly as he understood what this meant. They are afraid their own people will want what humans have. Freedom, Sujin said quietly. The freedom to grow and change and become something better. Taemin nodded. Our analysts believe the Consul's demand for terraforming technology is not about controlling new worlds. They need it because their old worlds are dying. Their rigid systems cannot adapt to environmental changes or resource depletion. He showed them images of Consul worlds taken by human spy satellites. The pictures were shocking. Many of the aliens' greatest cities were falling apart. Factories sat empty. Farmlands had turned to dust. They have been hiding their decline for centuries, Taemin explained. But our expansion into their region has made it impossible to hide anymore. Their people can see the difference between human colonies and their own failing worlds. Sujin pulled up her biological data again. This matches what I found in their genetic scans. These species are not just mentally stagnant, they are physically declining too. Their immune systems are weaker than they should be. Their lifespans are getting shorter. They are slowly dying as races. And they know it, Hyunwoo said. That is why they are so desperate to control us. Taemin brought up a new file on his tablet. There is something else you need to know. This meeting today was not just about making demands. Our sources inside the station report that the Consul has been preparing for this confrontation for months. The file showed detailed plans that human intelligence had intercepted. They have studied every species that has ever challenged their authority. They know exactly how to break the will of any race that opposes them. How? Sujin asked. Economic blockades first, Taemin explained. They cut off trade and resources until the challenging species begins to suffer. Then they offer small concessions in exchange for partial surrender. Finally, they gradually increase their control until the species becomes completely dependent on them. Hyunwoo looked at his friends. But this plan requires the challenging species to value comfort over freedom. Exactly, Taemin said. Every other race in the galaxy has eventually chosen security over independence. The Consul believes humans will do the same. Sujin laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. They do not understand humans at all. No, they do not, Hyunwoo agreed. They think we are just another species that can be controlled through fear and bribery. Taemin showed them one more file. This is the most important thing. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive Consul fleet movements. They are positioning ships to blockade every human world simultaneously. The star map showed red arrows pointing toward human space from multiple directions. They plan to surround all of our colonies the moment we refuse their demands. They think this will force us to surrender quickly. Will it work? Sujin asked. Taemin smiled for the first time since they had arrived at the station. They are about to find out why humans have never lost a war that mattered to us. Hyunwoo stood and walked to the center of the room. Tell me about Protocol 7. Protocol 7 has been in development since we first encountered the Consul 5 years ago, Taemin explained. Our leaders knew this confrontation would come eventually. Every human world has been preparing. He brought up classified files that showed the true scope of human preparations. We have been building hidden manufacturing facilities on asteroid bases. We have been sharing advanced technologies with our non-Consul allies. We have been preparing to become completely self-sufficient. Sujin looked at the data with amazement. You built an entire shadow economy. We built something the Consul cannot understand, Taemin said. A network based on cooperation instead of domination. Our allies are not subjects who pay tribute. They are partners who share knowledge and resources freely. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. The Consul believes they have us trapped, but they do not realize that humans do not respond to traps the way other species do. What do we do? Sujin asked. We do what humans have always done when faced with bullies, Hyunwoo said. We refuse to be victims. Outside their window, the alien fleet continued its silent watch. The Consul leaders were probably sleeping peacefully, confident that tomorrow would bring another species into their collection of servants. They had no idea that humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson that had been 3,000 years in the making. Some things were more important than safety. Some principles were worth any risk. The three humans spent the rest of the night reviewing their plans. Tomorrow, they would give the Consul an answer that no one in galactic history had ever given before. Tomorrow humanity would say no. The morning air in the great meeting hall felt heavy with expectation. The 12 Consul leaders sat in their massive chairs, looking down at the three humans like judges ready to pass sentence. Alien guards stood at every entrance, their weapons ready but hidden. High Counselor Threndak's crystal body caught the light from the room's many windows. He seemed to sparkle with confidence as he looked at the small human delegation. Have you considered our generous terms? He asked, his voice ringing like breaking glass. Hyunwoo Kim stood slowly from his simple chair. His movements were calm and deliberate. He smoothed down his dark suit jacket and looked around the enormous room. Every alien eye was focused on him. We have considered your terms very carefully, Hyunwoo said in his quiet voice. We understand exactly what you are asking of us. War Speaker. Clithmar clicked his mandibles together with satisfaction. Excellent. The Consul is prepared to be patient as humanity learns to follow galactic law. You will find that Consul guidance brings prosperity and peace, added the ethereal representative, its gaseous body swirling with what seemed like pleasure. Every species discovers this eventually. The representative of the Silicon Empire leaned forward, its rocky body creaking. Your terraforming technology will be put to much better use under proper supervision. We will show you worlds that need attention. Hyunwoo listened to each alien speak. He nodded politely as they described how wonderful life would be once humanity accepted its place in the galactic order. His calm demeanor seemed to encourage them. Several aliens relaxed in their chairs, certain that the humans had accepted their fate. We particularly look forward to placing advisors on your core worlds, Threndak continued. Earth, Mars, and your lunar colonies will benefit greatly from experienced guidance. Your military will be integrated into our peacekeeping forces, Clithmar added. Human aggression can be channeled into useful purposes under proper direction. Sujin Lee shifted slightly in her chair. Her hands were clenched into fists under the table, but her face remained calm. Taemin Park sat perfectly, still like a soldier at attention. The Hive Mind Collective spoke with its 1,000 voices at once. Resistance is futile and unnecessary. All species find happiness in unity with the Consul. Indeed, said the architect representative, its long snake-like body coiling around its chair. The ancient ways have brought 3 millennia of peace. Humanity will learn to appreciate stability. More aliens spoke, each one describing another aspect of human surrender. They talked about quotas and tribute payments. They discussed which human leaders would be allowed to remain in power. They planned the future of humanity as if humans were children who needed constant supervision. Through it all, Hyunwoo remained standing. He kept his hands folded behind his back and listened with the patience of a diplomat. The aliens mistook his quiet attention for acceptance. Finally, Threndak raised one crystalline hand for silence. The terms have been explained clearly. Human, Ambassador, do you accept the Consul's authority over your species? The room became perfectly quiet. Even the background hum of the station's machinery seemed to fade away. Every alien leaned forward slightly, waiting for the words of surrender they had heard from countless species before. Hyunwoo looked around the room one more time. His gaze met each alien face in turn. When he spoke, his voice was as calm as if he were discussing the weather. No. The simple word hung in the air like a physical thing. Several aliens blinked in confusion. The ethereal representative's gaseous body stopped swirling. I beg your pardon, Threndak said. Hyunwoo's voice remained steady and polite. The answer is no. Humanity rejects your terms. We reject your authority. We withdraw from all Consul treaties and agreements, effective immediately. War Speaker Klithmar's forearms twitched in agitation. That is impossible. No species refuses. The Consul. Humanity does, Hyunwoo said simply. He turned toward the exit and Sujin and Taiman rose to follow him. The 3 humans began walking across the vast floor toward the main doors. Stop! The crystalline being's voice cracked like thunder. You cannot simply leave. Hyunwoo did not stop walking. We can, and we are. The Silicon Empire representative stood up from its chair with a sound like grinding stone. This is unacceptable. The Consul has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. The Consul has ruled other species, Taiman said without turning around. Humanity is not other species. You do not understand the consequences of defying us. Klithmar screeched, his insect-like voice rising to a shrill pitch. We have fleets that can destroy entire star systems. Sujin spoke for the first time since entering the room. You do not understand the consequences of threatening us. The aliens erupted into chaos. Several representatives stood and shouted at once. The hive mind collective's 1,000 voices rose to a deafening roar. Guards started moving toward the humans but stopped when their leaders could not agree on what orders to give. This is madness, the ethereal representative wailed. Order must be maintained. The ancient ways must be preserved. Hyunwoo reached the great doors and paused. He turned back to face the panicking aliens one last time. The ancient ways, he said clearly, are about to end. You will reconsider, Threndak shouted after them. When you see our fleets surrounding your worlds, you will beg to return to these negotiations. No, Hyunwoo replied. We will not. The Ashki. Doors closed behind the humans with a deep resonant boom that echoed through the chamber. For several minutes, the alien leaders sat in stunned silence. Nothing like this had ever happened in the history of the Consul. In the hallway, alien guards and workers stared at the 3 humans as they walked calmly toward their ship. Word of what had happened was already spreading through the station. Some aliens looked confused. Others seemed frightened. A few watched the humans with something that might have been curiosity. They will try to stop us from leaving, Taiman said quietly. Let them try, Hyunwoo replied. They reached the docking bay to find their ship surrounded by armed guards. The bay doors had been sealed shut. An alien officer with bright blue skin and 4 eyes approached them. By order of the Consul, you are confined to the station until you agree to return to negotiations, the officer announced. Hyunwoo smiled for the first time since arriving at Nexus Station. Officer, I suggest you step aside. That is impossible. My orders are clear. Your orders, Taemin said, are about to become irrelevant. The soldier moved his hand to his weapon but stopped when Hyunwoo raised his communication device. Soul's Pride to Earth command. Activate Protocol 7. Repeat. Activate Protocol 7. Acknowledged, came the reply. Protocol 7 is now active. Good luck. The alien officer looked confused. What is Protocol 7? Sujin looked at him with something that might have been pity. You are about to find out. Throughout the docking bay, emergency lights began flashing. Alarms started sounding throughout the station. The sealed bay doors began grinding open despite the lockdown commands. The alien officer spoke frantically into his own communicator. Control, the bay doors are opening on their own. The human ship is powering up. All human colonies are refusing consul contact, came the panicked reply. Our fleets report that human ships are launching from hidden bases. We are detecting massive energy signatures from human space. More reports flooded in. Human allies are mobilizing their fleets. The Terran trade networks have gone dark. Our monitoring stations near human space have stopped responding. Hyunwoo, Taemin, and Sujin walked calmly to their ship. The alien guards watched but did not try to stop them. They seemed paralyzed by the cascade of reports coming through their communications. As Soul's Pride lifted off from the station, Hyunwoo looked back at Nexus Station through the window. The massive structure looked smaller somehow, less impressive than it had when they arrived. Do you think they understand yet? Sujin asked. Not yet, Hyunwoo replied. But they will. Taemin checked his instruments as they moved away from the station. The consul fleets are moving to surround our space just as we expected. Let them come, Hyunwoo said. They think they are about to begin a siege. They have no idea they are about to witness a revolution. Behind them, Nexus Station grew smaller in the distance. Ahead lay human space, where every world was preparing to show the galaxy what freedom looked like. The consul had ruled through fear for 3,000 years. Today they would learn that some species could not be ruled at all. News of humanity's rejection spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On 1,000 worlds, alien citizens gathered around communication screens to watch something that had never happened before. The mighty consul, rulers of the galaxy, for 3 millennia, had been told no by a species barely 2 centuries old. On the Veltar homeworld, crystalline beings clicked and chimed in confusion as they watched the broadcasts. Their leaders had always told them that resistance to the consul was impossible. Yet these strange mammals from a distant world had simply walked away from the negotiating table. High Counselor Threndak stood before the emergency assembly of the consul, his crystal body flickering with angry light. Deploy the fleets immediately, he commanded. Surround every human world. Cut off their trade routes. Within 1 month, they will be begging for mercy. War Speaker Clithmar's mandibles clicked with anticipation. The Zephyrian battle swarms are already moving. We will show these humans the price of defying galactic order. Across consul space, massive fleets began moving toward human territory. Ships that had kept peace through intimidation for centuries now prepared for actual war. The alien commanders were confident. No species had ever successfully resisted the consul's military might, but in human space, something unprecedented was happening. On Earth, President Hana Kim stood before the global assembly. Citizens of humanity, she announced, today we begin the most important chapter in our species' history. We stand alone against an empire that has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. But we do not stand defenseless. She activated a holographic display that showed the entire human sphere of influence. Red dots marked human colonies, while blue dots showed allied worlds. Green lines connected them all in a vast network. For 5 years, we have been preparing for this day. Protocol 7 is now active on every human world and every allied system. We are no longer dependent on consul trade or consul protection. We are free. On Mars, the great manufacturing complexes came fully online for the first time. Hidden factories that had been disguised as mining operations began producing warships at an incredible rate. Asteroid bases that the consul had never detected revealed. themselves and started launching supply convoys. The human colony on Kepler 442b received the first Consul blockade ships with a surprise. Instead of the frightened civilians the aliens expected to find, they discovered a world that had become a fortress. Orbital defense platforms emerged from camouflaged positions. The planet's surface lit up with energy shields that could withstand bombardment. Unknown vessels. The Human Defense Coordinator transmitted to the Consul fleet. You are in violation of Terran space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Consul fleet commander laughed. Humans, you are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender now and we will be merciful. Negative, came the calm reply. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal. The alien commander did not understand human determination. He ordered his ships to move closer to the planet. The response was immediate and devastating. Weapons that the Consul had never seen before lanced out from the human defenses. Beam weapons that could slice through alien armor like paper. Missile systems that could track and destroy multiple targets simultaneously. Shield technology that made the human installations nearly invulnerable. But the most shocking thing was what happened next. As the Consul fleet retreated in confusion, ships began launching from the planet's surface. These were not the simple human vessels the aliens expected. They were sleek, powerful warships that moved with impossible speed and grace. Similar scenes played out across human space. Every world that the Consul tried to blockade turned out to be far more heavily defended than anyone had imagined. Worse, the humans did not fight defensively. They launched immediate counterattacks that drove the alien fleets back. On the Consul, world of Drakmor, citizens watched the news broadcasts with growing amazement. Their own military leaders had always told them that their technology was the most advanced in the galaxy. Yet these humans were using weapons and defenses that seemed decades ahead of anything the Consul possessed. But Protocol 7 was not just about military resistance. Su-Jin Lee had spent months preparing for this moment. From hidden transmitters, throughout Consul space she began broadcasting something that terrified the alien leaders more than any weapon. Information. Citizens of the galaxy, her voice reached every world simultaneously. You have been told that the Consul protects you. You have been told that their way is the only way. These are lies. Her broadcasts included detailed instructions for terraforming. Dead worlds. Scientific techniques that could double agricultural production. Medical technologies that could extend lifespans and cure diseases that had plagued alien races for millennia. This knowledge belongs to all species, Su-Jin continued. The Consul has kept it from you to maintain their power. Today, we share it freely. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On dozens of Consul worlds, citizens began experimenting with the new technologies. Worlds that had struggled to feed their populations suddenly found themselves with surplus food. Planets that had been slowly dying from environmental damage began to heal. The Consul leadership watched in horror as their greatest fear became reality. Their own people were questioning why they had accepted limitations for so long when abundance was possible. On the gas giant world of Nethys, the floating cities of the ethereal race began implementing human atmospheric processors. Within Oyo days, their ancient energy crisis was solved. Citizens who had lived with strict rationing for centuries suddenly had power to spare. Why did our leaders never tell us such solutions existed? They asked each other. The Consul's first military probe toward Earth met with an even greater shock. The alien fleet was commanded by Admiral Vorthak, a veteran of a dozen campaigns. He expected to find a primitive world defended by crude human technology. Instead, he found something impossible. As his ships approached the outer solar system, they were met by vessels that should not have existed. Ships from a dozen different species, all flying alongside human craft. The fleet included Rigelian cruisers, Centauri destroyers, and even some Consul designs that had been modified with human technology. This is Admiral Vorthak of the Consul Navy, he transmitted. All non-Consul vessels will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The response came from Captain Jin-Ho Park of the Terran Defense Force. Admiral, this is Terran space. Your ships are not welcome here. I suggest you reconsider your position. You cannot threaten the Consul with a handful of stolen ships. These Ships were not stolen, Jinho replied calmly. They were freely given by our allies, and there are more coming. As if summoned by his words, more ships began emerging from behind Earth's moon. The alien admiral watched in disbelief as his sensors detected over 300 vessels of various designs. All of them were broadcasting human identification codes. The truth hit him like a physical blow. Humanity had not just prepared for this confrontation militarily, they had built a coalition of species that chose to stand with them against the Consul. Impossible, Forthak whispered. No species defies the Consul. Admiral, Jinho's voice was patient but firm. You are about to learn that the galaxy is much larger than the Consul's little corner of it. The human captain was right. Reports were flooding in from across Consul space. Species that had been considered primitive or irrelevant were revealing that they had been quietly building their own technologies and alliances. The rigid hierarchy that the Consul had maintained for millennia was crumbling, as species that had been suppressed began to stand up for themselves. On Nexus Station, High Counselor Threndak stared at the cascade of reports coming in from his fleets. Every single probe toward human space had been repelled. Worse, his own worlds were experiencing unrest as citizens demanded to know why their leaders had hidden beneficial technologies for so long. How is this possible? He demanded. We have the largest fleets in the galaxy. War Speaker Clithmar's mandibles clicked nervously. The humans. They fight differently than other species. They do not seek to conquer or dominate. They offer partnership instead. Partnership is weakness. Threndak's crystal body flared with angry light. Is it? Clithmar asked quietly. Their allies fight harder for them than our subjects ever fought for us. The truth was becoming undeniable. The Consul had ruled through fear and artificial scarcity for 3,000 years, but humanity offered something the galaxy had never seen before. Genuine cooperation and shared prosperity. Species that had lived under Consul rule for generations were beginning to remember what it felt like to hope for something better, and that hope was spreading faster than any fleet could travel. The ancient order was not just being challenged, it was being replaced by something entirely new. 6 months had passed since 3 humans walked away from the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The universe would never be the same. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest orbital platform, watching ships from dozens of species working together in perfect harmony. Rigelian engineers worked alongside human technicians to build new shipyards. Centauri scientists shared research with alien species who had been enemies just months before. The transformation had been faster and more complete than anyone had imagined possible. The first major breakthrough came when the Veltar crystal beings on Nexus Station began questioning their own leaders. Citizens who had watched the human broadcasts started experimenting with the freely shared technologies. Their dying crystal gardens, which had been slowly failing for centuries, suddenly bloomed with new life using human biotechnology. Why did our counselors tell us this was impossible? They asked each other in their chiming voices. The answer, when it came, shattered the foundation of Consul authority. High Counselor Threndak had been forced to admit that the ruling class had known about many beneficial technologies for decades. They had suppressed them to maintain control over their populations. The revelation sparked protests across the Veltar homeworld that eventually spread to every Consul member species. Taemin Park had been promoted to Admiral of the new Terran Defense Alliance. He now commanded fleets that included ships from over 40 different species. But unlike the Consul's hierarchy of fear, this alliance was built on voluntary cooperation. Every species brings something unique to our coalition, he explained to a gathering of alien commanders. The Rigelians have the best engineers. The Centauri understand energy systems better than anyone. The Ethereals can process atmospheric data faster than our computers. What do humans bring? Asked Captain Velnar of the former Consul world. Drakmor Taemin smiled. We bring the belief that everyone can be better than they are today. The military situation had stabilized in humanity's favor within weeks of the initial confrontation. The Consul's vast fleets designed to intimidate rather than fight proved surprisingly vulnerable to the advanced technologies that human allies had been secretly developing. But the real victory was not military. It was ideological. Sujin Lee had become the director of the Galactic Advancement Institute, a new organization dedicated to freely sharing scientific knowledge throughout the galaxy. Her offices on Earth received delegations from species who had been isolated under consul rule for thousands of years. "We have so much to learn," said Dr. Kethvar, a brilliant scientist from the silicon-based architects. "My people have been following the same engineering principles for millennia. Your methods of adaptive construction could revolutionize our entire civilization." Sujin reviewed the latest reports from worlds that had implemented human technologies. Agricultural production was up by an average of 300% on former consul worlds. Worlds that had been slowly dying from resource depletion were now thriving. Most importantly, species that had never been allowed to develop their own technologies were finally free to innovate. "The consul told us that rapid change was dangerous," Dr. Kethvar continued. "They said stability was more important than progress." "Stability without growth is just another word for death," Sujin replied. "Life is meant to change and adapt and become something better." The political transformation of the galaxy had been equally dramatic. The consul still existed, but it was now just one faction among many. Several member species had withdrawn entirely to join the Terran Commonwealth. Others had reformed their governments to allow more freedom for their citizens. Yunwu received daily requests for membership in the Commonwealth from worlds across the galaxy. But humanity's response continued to surprise everyone. "We do not seek to replace the consul's empire with our own," he explained to a delegation from the Zephyrian homeworld. "We offer partnership, not domination." The insectoid delegates clicked, their mandibles in confusion. "But you have proven yourselves stronger. By galactic law, you have the right to rule us." "Galactic law," Hyunwoo said gently, "was written by conquerors. We prefer to write our own rules." The Commonwealth that emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of tributary relationships and forced compliance, it was based on mutual benefit and shared goals. Member species maintained their independence while cooperating on projects that benefited everyone. The first major Commonwealth project was the restoration of Kepler 438b, a world that had been strip-mined by the consul and left to die. Using combined technologies from a dozen species, they turned the dead planet into a garden world in just 4 months. "This is impossible," said Councillor Drathmore of the Silicon Empire, one of the few consul leaders who had agreed to visit the restored world. "Our projections said it would take centuries to heal this much damage." "Your projections assumed you would use only consul methods," Taemin explained as they walked through forests that had not existed 6 months earlier. "When species work together instead of competing, amazing things become possible." The transformation was not without challenges. Some consul hardliners continued to resist the new order. Radical factions within several species tried to use the chaos to start their own wars of conquest. Pirates and raiders attempted to take advantage of changing power structures. But the Commonwealth response to these threats demonstrated why the old ways of thinking were obsolete. When the hegemony of Vrak tried to conquer the peaceful Tau Ceti colonies, they expected to face only human defenders. Instead, they found themselves fighting a coalition of 12 species who had come to defend their allies. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. "We do not understand," the captured Vrak commander said to Hyunwoo. "Why do so many species fight for worlds that are not their own?" "Because they are not fighting for territory," Hyunwoo explained. "They are fighting for the principle that free peoples should remain free." The economic effects of the transformation were perhaps the most dramatic of all. The consul's system of artificial scarcity and controlled trade had kept most species in a state of barely managed survival. The Commonwealth's policy of free knowledge sharing and open cooperation created abundance that amazed even the humans. "We have increased our industrial output by 500% in 6 months, reported Minister Hee Jin-yoon from the Mars manufacturing centers. And that is with only 30% of our allied species fully integrated into the production network. How is this possible?" asked an economic analyst from the Ethereal Collective. When you do not waste resources on maintaining artificial hierarchies, Heejin explained, you can focus everything on actually solving problems. The old consul worlds were experiencing their own renaissance as citizens finally gained access to technologies and opportunities they had been denied for generations. Innovation flourished as species that had been locked into rigid castes discovered they had capabilities their rulers had never allowed them to explore. On Nexus Station, now renamed Freedom Station, the former symbol of consul authority had become a center for interspecies cooperation. The great meeting hall where humanity had once been threatened now hosted conferences where dozens of species shared discoveries and planned joint ventures. Hyunwoo often returned to that hall to meet with delegations from across the galaxy. Today he was meeting with representatives from the far rim species who had just learned about the Commonwealth. We have heard impossible stories, said Speaker Nithara of the Distant Wanderers. Worlds that share resources freely. Species that help each other without demanding tribute. Technologies given away instead of hoarded. The stories are true, Hyunwoo assured her. Would you like to see for yourself? As the year progressed, it became clear that the galaxy had reached a tipping point. The old order based on fear and scarcity was being replaced by something unprecedented. A civilization based on growth, cooperation, and the belief that all species could achieve their full potential. War Speaker Clithmar, now calling himself simply Clithmar, had become one of the Commonwealth's most effective ambassadors. His own species had undergone dramatic changes once they were freed from the rigid military hierarchy that had defined them for millennia. Humans taught us something our species had forgotten, he explained to a gathering of young Zephyrians. We had convinced ourselves that conflict was our nature, but we learned that cooperation requires just as much courage and skill as war. The final symbol of the transformation came when the last consul holdouts requested a meeting with human leadership. High Counselor Threndak, his crystal body dimmed with age and defeat, came to Earth to negotiate the peaceful integration of the remaining consul worlds into the new galactic order. We offer our surrender, he said formally, as he faced Hyunwoo in the same conference room where it had all begun. We do not accept surrenders, Hyunwoo replied kindly. We offer partnerships. Threndak's crystal form flickered with confusion. I do not understand. Your people have knowledge and experience that could benefit the entire galaxy, Hyunwoo explained. We do not want to conquer you. We want to work with you to build something better than either of us could create alone. For the first time in millennia, the crystal being found himself at a loss for words.